up, everyone? Welcome to this video, and today we're going to, well, make ourselves look tired. Now, the reason why you see two different works of art, I guess you can call, is because I'm doing this with two different lighting settings. That's right, two. One important thing to keep in mind as a makeup artist is you want to pay attention to what kind of lighting you're going to be working with, especially if you're getting paid to do this, so you want to make it look good. And I was thinking about the differences between the two, and I was like, why don't I just do this in a makeup video or something sometime? So, here we are. This side is basically for anything with dimmer lighting and very selectively lit rooms. And then for this side, this is for, like, close-up work and brightly lit places, so basically, like a film set. If you want to do stage makeup, I would lean more towards this one that has the dimmer lighting, only because while the lights are very bright, you're also far away from the audience. So it's a good one that they can see. Like this, they probably wouldn't be able to see super well, but this, from like across the theater, you'll notice it. Like, it's much more likely at least. So I'm going to go through steps through each of those sides. So one for one setting, one for the other, and yeah, this is the finished product. If you like what you're seeing and you want to help support me in getting better equipment, go back to live streaming, whatever, I have a Ko-fi page that I will put in the description below somewhere. And if you like what you see here, you can also, hit subscribe, like, leave a comment. And I'm also open to suggestions if you want to see comparisons with other types of looks that you could do on either set. So let me know if you want to see anything like this in the future. And remember, have fun and go nuts. You can always wipe it off if you mess up and try again. It's okay. So without further ado, let's get started. So the idea I'm going for is to do each eye in as if it was a different lighting setting. So I'm going to do one eye as if we were doing film set lighting or in your face sort of stuff in something a little bit brighter. So something kind of like what I have now, maybe even more. And then the other one I'm going to do as if you were in a haunted house to give you an idea of what that might look like. And maybe later I'll like dim the light or something and give you that sense of what it might look like. I think because the one for the haunted house might be a little bit messier, I'm going to do that one first. Whenever I do a makeup like this in a haunted house, I usually do it for characters who are either, supposed to be crazed or probably haven't slept very well in the past few days, maybe haven't slept at all. But when I do that, I tend to go for something a little bit brighter, like, say, there's a red here that I have in, it's a Pro Ring bruise wheel. I believe it is it's from Maron. So something like that could work. I would also recommend using Bed Nye's Zombie Wheel if you want. I used a lot of this in makeups, mostly from, I think, the last time I did Haunting, I don't know. Or I could use something like this color. Either one should be fine. Again, you want to pay attention to what kind of lighting you use. But for the purposes of this look, I'm going to go with the lighter one. So when you think of eyes that have just worn out person, I usually think of a lot of reds and purples, but again, for haunted house, you want to go a little bit nuts. So I'm going to do red at first as a baseline, because, this is the thing. And I'm going to do that red all over my eyelid, and a little under the eye. I like blending with my fingers sometimes because the natural oils in your skin are pretty good at this. I also am only doing this on myself because these are my eyes. I wouldn't be inclined to do this with other people because, my fingers going to their eyes might be a little... Make sure my hands are clean first, but also, I know my own limits, so take that as you will. I didn't go super heavy underneath the eye because that doesn't have as much surface area, number one, and two, I'm gonna focus more in here when it comes to like purples and stuff, just to like make them more sunken in. So again, this is for haunted house lighting, so this will stand out a little bit more than if I used regular like contouring. So with a separate thing, I'm gonna go into the purple in the bruise wheel, and then kind of do some inner work with that, so not over the entire bit, but just over some of it, like a little bit more inward. I'm gonna focus more on the corner, like the inner corner. Now, fun little thing if you're blending under here. So, from what I remember hearing, this under bit of your eye is the thinnest skin you have in your entire body. So when you apply makeup, if you rub it a lot, that could be like what causes like or contributes to wrinkles down there. So if you want to try to avoid that, do it very, very lightly, even just little dabs. I also understand it totally looks like I got punched, but I promise you I did not. So I was noticing just as I was talking, it already looks, you can see a little bit of the difference already, right? This is the exciting part when it comes to makeup. It's like, ooh, you see the difference. And speaking of that blending, because this is for a haunted house, I'm gonna take it out a little bit more. Just exaggerate it just a little bit, and probably darken it up a bit more too. Now, if you want to get really fancy with detailing, there's two different ways that you can play with that. Number one is if you have a black makeup, like this grease paint, for example. It is from Maron. It is foundation. It's black. You can use like a little bit of that if you want to detail underneath the teensy bit. It'll work for darker environments, mainly because it will show that contrast better than it would in a brightly lit set like this. Your other option is if you have something about this color. I can't remember what exact makeup it is. I got it from a zombie workshop I did a little while back, and this is like regular grease paint. It's not alcohol based, so it's totally safe to use around your eyes as far as I'm aware. And yeah, you can use something like that if you'd like to. But I think for the sake of contrast, I'm gonna go with the black, and I'm gonna try to do it as lightly as I can. The problem with grease paint is that you can get a little excited easily, and then you end up with a lot more than you think you might. And then you're just like, oh, whoopsie. So essentially what I'm trying to do is, like, there's little creases that sometimes happens when you squint. That's what I'm trying to detail out right now. I also might do it on my upper lid in the crease of my eyelid because that could help out with that too. Let's try it. See what happens. At least in the corner. I'm also going to do this on the, like, outer part here. So if the edges don't blend out perfectly, it's totally okay, because if you're in a dimly lit environment, it's not going to look perfect. And honestly, if you're in one of those, like, haunted houses that's full of jump scares all over the place, like, every single step you take is a jump scare, then they ain't going to see you for that long. So, I mean, obviously, do what makes you happy as an artist, but understand that it's probably not going to be as big of a deal as your brain is telling you it is. And this goes for, like, people who are overthinkers like me and really want to do a good job. And I like it when it looks good. So what we have right now is the only light in my room right now is a regular lamp. I wanted to do that to mimic potential lighting in a haunted house. Now, this obviously isn't lit to perfect set, but can you see already a difference between this eye that has no makeup on and this one with makeup? Now, obviously you can't tell what the colors are and everything, but do you notice that this one, there's like little differences here and there in that? Like, how do I explain it? Like the depth of it, I guess? This is what it might look like in an actual haunted house setting. There's a bunch of other options too, but this is just one possible example. Now, this is the lowest setting on my ring light, so maybe it will be easier to see the difference here. Now, from what I can tell, this is a bit more sunken than this right here, and I'm telling by looking at my viewfinder. You also might notice a difference in the crease and sort of going into the brow area. It looks a bit more worn, so this is what I meant to show, like, what the difference might be. I'll do this one more time when I have the other eye done, but I wanted to give this as, like, a starter example so that you have a comparison. Especially if you want to, like, pause the video and then end up looking at the two to compare and contrast. Yeah, I wanted to give that opportunity. And now, let's move on to one thing we could possibly do for film sets. The biggest difference, as I've probably said before in this video and lose track of everything I say, film sets have a lot more lighting. A lot brighter. So for this look, I definitely want to go more natural and less like I got potentially punched in the face. Maybe. And one way you can accomplish that is you want to try to get those dark circles under there. They don't have to be purple, as it turns out. They can be brown. Sometimes the lid is purple. My brother, when he looks like he's really tired, his upper lid gets kind of a light purple and a little bit down here. But you can also go for that sunken look. Another thing that I find very helpful in making it convincing is if you add a teensy bit of blue in the corner. Because it's like your veins are doing a little extra work or something. I don't know. Or they show a little bit more. Something like that. Anyway, Laura, stop talking and just get to the damn makeup. So this is cake makeup. This is from Maron. It is contour. It says 238. Basically, it's like a mocha color. So I'm going to use that in the entire upper and lower lid. Maybe a little bit under the lower lid. Now, the amount of contour powder you want to use is going to be dependent on, well, is your eye already naturally kind of like this? And 2, skin tone. I will openly admit that I mostly, when I do this on myself, I know what works for people with lighter skin tones, like me. But it may not always work for people with darker skin colors. So if you need to adapt this because of the tones and all that fun stuff, go for it. Do whatever works. I'm not sure how well it's showing up in the camera, but I'm already seeing a slight difference. So I put a lot of focus in the inner corners and under, like, here. This helps sell, like, how tired you might look. Okay, now we get to some of the fun, little, tricky details. So, like I said before, you're going to run into some people, like my brother, for example, who their eyelids get kind of purple. So I'm going to do that only on the upper lid. I might move to the bottom lid, but we'll see how it goes with this look. I'll do that first and then move on to that if I think it looks okay. And I'm going to use a smaller brush because I kind of want to be a little selective about where I put it. I think I'm going to go ahead and only do the crease in the lower lid for this one, just to like make that pop a little bit. I'm also going to focus a little bit on the inner corner of my eye because sometimes when it comes to looks like this, that is really what's going to sell it. And speaking of putting some focus on the inner corners, I'm actually going to go in with this clown wheel from Ben Nye. I'm going to use the little light blue. If you do a little bit just in the inner corner of the eye, that does help make it a little bit brighter, but also like add to this look. I don't know if I can find the proper explanation for it, but it works. I'll show you. And again, I'm going to go in with a smaller brush, maybe even a Q-tip, because, you know, the little details sometimes. So as you can see, there's already like a stark difference in the two. You don't have to go with this much blue. I think I went a little heavy-handed with it, but it does add a little something, I think. Now, obviously, after color correction and post-production, this might come out a little bit differently, but there you go. Now, to really set home what this would like in a lower lighting situation, I'm going to turn the light off one more time so you can see the difference between the two and how they each would, theoretically, show up in dimmer lighting settings. So I'm going to go into haunted house lighting mode. Now, I fully understand that this may not be the best way to compare the two, but I'm wondering if you can possibly see a difference already in these two. So remember that this is the eye I did the haunt lighting look for, versus this one, which was the film set lighting, or like brighter lighting setting. I could kind of tell that this one looks a little bit more sunken, only because of like the way I spread it out more. And I'm wondering how much this is in comparison to when I had nothing on this eye. And this is the slightly more lighting, so I'm wondering how much you can see, but I can already tell that there is a difference between the two. This one, it's a bit more prominent because I made it more prominent, but this one is a little bit more subtle, but I can barely notice like the actual detailing and the coloring compared to this one. Like this one, there seems to be a bit more of a stark contrast, where this one is a bit more subtle, and the blue does add an interesting light to it. And I can kind of tell by, especially if I close my eye, there's a bit of difference in the crease as far as I've noticed, but if I was doing a haunted house lighting set, I would probably do more of this one because, again, stark contrast. So these are two different ways you can make eyes look very tired or very sunken. There are plenty of other ways you could possibly do this, but I would say whatever one you pick, do what makes you happy and whatever makes the most sense to you. And as a makeup artist, understand your lighting because that will help you a lot when you want to plan for these. I feel like at least one of these looks kind of reflects how I actually feel, especially when I have really long work weeks with no break in between and no time to recharge. It's eh.